All right, y'all, we're going to get started here. If everyone can take a seat, quiet down, want to get ready, get the morning going. Welcome to Creative Mornings, and if it is your first time here, please raise your hand. I'm just curious. I'd love to see it. Thank you all for coming and giving us your time this morning. We have been a very small group for a long time, but we're so excited that y'all are here. Please keep telling your friends about it, but thanks for coming. We've got a great guest this morning, so we're really excited. So Creative Mornings, that's what we are. That's what we're here for. It's a global organization. We'll get into it in a little bit. But basically, a lot of chapters are meeting all around the world, some at this very same time. So what Creative Mornings is a global nonprofit organization. The whole point is trying to get us to celebrate the creatives within our own community. We're in Columbia. We have a lot of amazing people here. We're in this amazing art gallery right now holding this event. So we're really, really excited to have a local chapter here. We're small, but we're mighty, and we're ready to keep growing, so thanks for coming. Our theme this month, so every month, Creative Mornings Global picks a theme. I think our city actually gets to pick it in like 2027 or something, so hopefully we're still here, but we're ready, start thinking. But this month's theme is spicy. So it was chosen by our Tucson chapter and illustrated by an artist, Sophie McTeer. If you want to look her up, she made this illustration. And the theme, words that come with this, oh yeah, it's hot. When you're cooking, spices add flavor, depth, and complexity to otherwise plain culinary dish. Spicy foods interact with receptors in our mouth and can trigger sensations of heat and even pain. Can you handle it? Being open to trying new and bold tastes is a good lesson for bringing daring and originality into all of our creative endeavors. As they say, variety is the spice of life. Spicy can also be exciting and suggestive. A spicy comment or a joke is provocative and controversial. Such spicy takes often challenge conventional beliefs and ignite strong, passionate reflections from people. So how can you make your work and approach to life spicy? Let's bring the heat. Just a quick note too, I am up here, I don't love public speaking, I'm terrified on the inside right now. Mike, our amazing host, is out of town on a work trip today, so I'm trying to do my best here. Next time, I hope you come to get to see him. He does a much better job than I do, but thank you for being gracious. So we have a little icebreaker. I just want to open up the floor for a little bit. If you walked in here and got to choose your spice level, we have a little poster on the back. Basically, when you walked in, you could get a little dot that you could put next to where you like your food or spice on the spicy meter. So I'm just curious, want to open it up. Can anyone share what they chose or why? Like, are you a spicy person, non-spicy person? How hot can you handle it? Could you be on that hot wing show? Just curious. Anybody?
Oh. I chose in the middle. It's not that I don't like spice, but I find sometimes it can overpower other things, and so I like a little more balance.
I like it, balance.
Seems like a life motto or something.
I love that. Yeah, I like it. Anyone else? Shay.
Yeah, I was between adding sriracha to everything and blending my own varieties of chili peppers. I think for a long time I was like a thrill seeker, so I needed the adrenaline like surging through my body. But now that I'm getting older, I'm able to have a little less of that. Yeah, like physically.
Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Could you be on the hot wing show?
Yeah, I heard one time a friend ordered something like delivery from a restaurant. He was on the phone. He was like, "Yeah, kitchen heat," which means I guess like the chemicals, like whatever you got, just dump it on.
And you can handle it.
Yeah,
Has there ever been a pepper that you have tried that you cannot handle?
No, but I watched your friend do the Carolina Reaper, and then he had to go to the hospital. So I'm not that level.
He
But
did like
like,
spicy chip challenges.
below that.
Okay, I like my son's been trying that with like Takis, you know. His friends will get together and like try the Taki challenge.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone else? One more? Yes, Karen.
I did sriracha and most things, but my husband and I did once make the mistake of, on our anniversary, going to Harry Singh's Caribbean restaurant in Minneapolis, where the rotis were so hot you had to eat the jerk chicken with your mouth down, and that was
that mixture. That is impressive. Personally, I'm kind of a wimp, honestly. I try my best. My husband can handle a lot of heat.
But last night I was really proud of myself. I made some firecracker meatballs from HelloFresh. Don't know if we have any HelloFresh partakers in the room, but big fan. It's like a honey mixed with sriracha and some like sour cream sauce. It's just real nice, but big fan.
All right, and we are here to bring a friend and make a friend. We want you all to come here and feel comfortable. We want it to feel like a comfortable, fun morning for you. Just give you something, a new way to start your weekends, hopefully going into the work, last day of work. It's probably been a crazy week, or maybe for some of you, you're working all weekend too, but hopefully it provides you some inspiration going into this. So please, 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 if you have a great time today, go home, tell your friends, bring a friend next time. We'd love to have more of you. Let's fill this room up. Field trips are something super cool. I really am a big fan. If you guys are have signed up or registered as members for Creative Mornings, which is a free membership, you actually have access to, I want to say a bazillion, that's not technically correct, but a lot of field trips. Usually they have about like 60 to 70 field trips every month, and what those are essentially like virtual classes you can sign up for, and it goes all aboard of just like some really creative kind of heady classes, all the way to like actual technical marketing classes if you want to learn how to use email marketing, digital marketing. There's a lot of really great tips and tricks to kind of learn in there. You can also do field trips. Sometimes they'll do like walks through different art galleries, walk through the hills of France, with other people virtually and talk about what you're seeing. So there's a lot of really cool opportunities there. That's something that we hope to, as we expand our chapter, we'd love to start doing some field trips in person here for our local Creative Mornings. So maybe going to visit an art gallery together, go look at a local brewery and learn how their process is working. So more opportunities in the future. As mentioned earlier, Creative Mornings is a global organization. There are there's about 238 chapters right now, 69 countries. And I think online you can even find, we record all of these talks and put them online, and so you can go to any Creative Mornings city and look at any of their talks that you're interested in. And a fun little tip, if you go to any other city and want to join a Creative Mornings, you can go to any of their Creative Mornings as well. As long as you're a registered member, you just sign up on their page. This was just kind of cool to show some screenshots. It's just neat to see all the other people that are meeting at the same time this morning that we are. So we've got people all over Berlin and Stockholm and Grand Rapids. I'm from Michigan, so I love seeing that on there. And then we've got Columbia. Here we are. There you are, Michelle. You made the internet again. We're excited. You broke it. Got a lot of great folks on there. And also I just want to also just give a quick shout out. We have some amazing new volunteers. Robin, Angela, Sarah, Kylie, Patricia, probably missing a few more people. We have so much help for this event today, so I'm just really, really appreciative of all of the help. Lauren and Steve and I have been here since the beginning. I mean, lots of people have been working on this team over the years. We're just really happy to have kind of a bigger group so we can do more things, and we want to keep doing that. So if anyone is interested in volunteering, please send us an email or DM us on Instagram. You can also chat with one of us here after the event. We'd be happy to talk to you about what that's like. Here we are, Orr Street. We are very, very thankful to Orr Street for letting us use this space. They have been so kind and gracious to us and letting us have these for Friday mornings for like the last, since we came back from COVID. So we're really, really appreciative of them for donating the space to us. So thank you, Orr Street. And honestly, while you're here, if you're not familiar with Orr Street, take a look around after the event. You can kind of wander and go look at the gallery. There's lots of artists here that have amazing prints for sale. I know Asia Wong has some new prints back there that are really, really neat. There's just a lot of really great artists in our town, so feel free to just kind of meander and take it all in. Oh, here we are. Here we are again. Make a friend, bring a friend. Oh, okay. And then, of course, we have our Creative Mornings Manifesto. Do I have a volunteer that would like to come up and read it? It is on screen, so it makes it really easy. Any brave souls?
I'll read it.
You can sit and read. You want to read?
I'll read.
Steven? I love it.
Let's get the thing rolling. Shall we? Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery in action, honesty, and hard work. We're here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections and learning from others, and hugs and high fives. We're bringing together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome.
Good job.
Thank you, Stephen. Stephen, while I'm introducing Shelley, do you mind getting her presentation up for me? Technical helper, thank you so much. No pressure. If you do this wrong, I get to blame it on you, and it's not my fault.
I can take it.
Y'all, so obviously I think you're all here for one very special lady. We know, admittedly, since I've been on this team, I have been waiting for some themes that I could send to her and see if she'd be interested and open to coming and speak here today. Luckily, one of our previous speakers, Chris Canada, in the house, was able to get me connected with Shelley, and so we were able to bring her in to talk about our theme today. Personally, I have been a big fan ever since I've tried the ravioli at the farmers markets, but there's a lot of story that goes with where she is, and I'm sure there's more story that goes where she goes next. So we're really excited to hear from Shelley Fata. Come on up.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I really identify with that manifesto, and just thinking about this group and who might be here today, a group of creatives who appreciate that being alive in our community and supporting each other. That's really what this story is about. And this story that I'm going to tell you, it's about food and it's about business, but today I'll be talking more about the business than the food, and what is the formula that created exponential growth over the last 5 years. Literally, the Department of Revenue called me last year and they were like, "Who are you? What are you?"
That's great.
Why are you paying so much in taxes? We're gonna take a closer look. I didn't go to business school, but I recognize there's a formula here that created a really successful business, and there's so many factors, but I'm breaking it down into 4, and one is me and my nurture and nature that created a very passionate, hardworking person, and the right team, and the right consultants, and a supportive community. And that was like the incubator that drove this business. Over the course of the last several years, I recognized like the power of good food, and I feel like I'm in a great line of work, even though the margins are razor thin. People have to eat, and they are emotionally bound to food and their food experiences, and it was something that I've always felt growing up in a Sicilian American family. Like, food is our religion. Grandma, her food is our religion. But then more people started coming to me with tears in their eyes, and they're like, this food connects me to my memories and my memories of my grandma. Those are moments that really like put a fire in me, and I was like, they love it, I'm gonna keep going. So if you see somebody in town that is doing something that you love and appreciate, like just telling them, I think can really fuel them. So I encourage that. I don't want to just stand here and talk about myself, but I want to share the pearls of wisdom and the lessons that I've learned along the way. And I know you've all probably heard that the restaurant industry is a difficult one to be in. I heard that 1 in 5 is a success, but I'm not going to focus on that. And I'll talk about my business coach
at one point, but one of the lessons that she taught me a couple years ago, I said to her, I was like, people come up to me all the time, they're so invested, and like the nature of working at the farmer's market, people see your business grow and feel connected to you and invested, and they want to know how I'm doing. And this was like me opening the restaurant, planning to open the restaurant, and I was like, I'm freaking out. I'm not good. What should I say? And she was like, tell them you're doing great. And these people who are coming up to you all day long asking, how are you doing? Like, don't tell them about the walk-in refrigerator. And, you know, all of these daily obstacles, just say you're having a great time. People, there's this psychology where they want to buy from someone who's happy and not scared. So, yeah, like I'm going to focus on, I'll get to some of the fear, but mostly I'm just going to talk about how I persevere. Yeah, so there's not going to be any bar graphs in this presentation. It's mostly a photographic journey of the last several years. I'm a young woman in a generation that took a lot of photos, and this business was developed as social media was being developed, so there's like 10 years and 10,000 photos that I sorted through to kind of give you a glimpse of what the work was. But first I'm going to introduce you to my personal story, like who I am and where I came from, to illustrate like why I was so good at developing Pasta La Fata. And this logo, you know, the colors may not make sense to everyone, but these are very Italian colors. And when you go to Italy, there's a lot of blue and yellow. They also, you've probably heard, very proud people of the flag and just the country and the traditions in general. But the yellow represents the sun and the blue represents the sea. And it's a peninsula, it's surrounded by 5 seas. So they have this saying that all you need is sole, mare, and amore, the sun, the sea, and love. And the first time that I thought, oh my God, Pasta La Fata, that's the name, that is such a great ring to it, wow. I just grabbed a piece of rubber from my craft box and started carving this out. So this logo was me sitting in my basement apartment carving into a piece of rubber that I started painting and stamping onto things.
Cool.
Yeah. So about me, I grew up in St. Louis. I was there for 20 years, the first 20 years, and I've been here for the most part ever since. Can you all hear me? The mic is kind of in and out. So I was born to a Sicilian American father. My dad's 100% Sicilian, and my mom is Irish, Scottish, French Canadian. So my Sicilian grandparents, they had a farm and they grew all their own food. And until I got to college, thought that everybody ate pasta 5 days a week. These are my Sicilian grandparents. These are the La Fatas. So all of our cookie recipes at Pasta La Fata are my grandma's recipes, Josephine La Fata. She started writing them in the 40s and 50s, and I have them all in her handwriting. They're at my dad's house. I'm not allowed to remove them from the premises, but I took photos and then started practicing them and making bigger and bigger batches, and have since trained many young professional cooks to make them as well. So it's fun to imagine the pride that these two would feel as farmers and immigrants. This was me on their farm. He always planted over 100 tomato plants, but like so many other things too. Probably plants we wouldn't even recognize that were quintessential to a Sicilian American diet. Okay, so so as a young person in St. Louis, I went to great schools. I was privileged, and I loved school, and not for academic reasons, for social reasons. Like, I had a blast, and in high school I was friends with everyone in my class. At one point I actually started a lunchroom without borders, like let's all sit together and meet everyone. And I was voted most likely to join the Peace Corps, and so I toured Columbia, fell in love with downtown, seeing like art and the Peace Nook and Main Squeeze, like those were big like things in my mind. So I enrolled and studied international peace studies and got a lot of like guff for that. People were like, "Oh, you'd do better studying war. That would make more sense, you know, teach you about history and how the world really works." But I was always really concerned with social justice as a kid, like, and poverty and factory farms and deforestation. And so that was all that I could think about in college, was maybe being a part of changing the world. So I managed the Peace Nook actually for 5 years. And a lot of people are like, "People work there?" I thought it was all volunteers. But yeah, it's mostly volunteers, but there's a few paid staff there, and I was a buyer of products for the store and a volunteer coordinator, and I would go to events and represent the Peace Nook, and it was really like a integration into the grassroots community of Columbia, and like becoming a resource to the community. People walking down the stairs and you're like, "Who's that? What are they gonna say? What are they gonna ask me?" It was a wild like experience, meeting so many people, but also like so many people who cared about Columbia. And that led into volunteering at the Root Cellar, which at the time was a few doors down on Broadway. And then I really started meeting local farmers and people who really care about gardening, the Community Garden Coalition. And I started to change my mind about like joining the Peace Corps and moving to Africa. And I was like, there's issues here. And I can think locally and act globally. Or the other way, right? Act locally, think globally. Either way, I decided to stay home. And so there's me being a peace activist in downtown Columbia. You can see kind of the Slackers sign in the background, and working booths at Peace Park. And so then I joined the rugby team at Mizzou. I played rugby for 5 years, and I wasn't really an athlete until then. Like, I was a strong young woman, but this really taught me a lot about my strength and conviction, and like showing up and like just doing everything it physically took to get the ball down the field, or whatever. It was grueling and so fun. Yes, so that's a freezer I painted at the root cellar. That was probably 2007. Really. And so this is me and a group of people at the first restaurant I ever worked at. This was Broadway Brewery. So I was at the Peace Nook volunteering at the root cellar, and they're building this restaurant next door. Local farmers are building a restaurant, and I was like, man, you gotta hire me. I've never worked in a professional kitchen before. I've tried. Literally, they at pizza places, and they were like, how about you answer the phone? So these people believed me, and they were like, yes, come work in our restaurant. And I just really want to convey that local restaurants are such a sweet and unique place. They're so different than the big chains, and for this group of people, it was such like an immersive, creative experience of people, young people who were obsessed and downloading so much information fast and sharing it. Like, it was so fun to have all these fresh seasonal ingredients and learn how to cook them. This is Brian Manis.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he was my kitchen manager. And this here is Ted Chinchosi. He's one of my best friends, and I don't know if you've heard about him yet, but he's opening a pizza place with Brian Manis.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and this was us in 2009. So we've actually seen the world together. We're a very tight-knit group. But these were our origins. So I'm like playing rugby, living with rugby players, cooking for them. They've got Velveeta in the fridge, and I've got like 10 different kinds of local cheese. And they're like, you're so different. Like, you should go to culinary school. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should. I should learn to be a professional chef. But I didn't want to just go to the typical French, so I looked into other places, and I ended up in Austin, Texas, at a place called the Natural Epicurean Academy of Culinary Arts. Long title, but it was owned by a yoga studio, and they were very progressive. Like, as soon as we got there, they were like, before you cook, you're going to learn about digestion.
Whoa.
And how food is medicine.
Cool.
Yeah. And it really was extremely plant-based and healing. And it was an all female group class. There's me in Austin in culinary school. And everybody had a internship where they worked at restaurants in Austin, but I was not interested, and I worked on a farm as my internship. So, yeah, there's me, and every day I showed up, and there was a different task. It was really hard work. I was out there, like, harvesting onions or, like, washing greens. It was a good experience, but my mom was like, are you freaking kidding me? You're in culinary school, and you're interning at a farm? Like, how does that even make sense? And I was like, well, this is where the food comes from. Remember? Okay. So a big part of this culinary program was they were training us to be professionals and think about a career. And most of my instructors were like, you should be a private chef. That's where the money is. There's so many rich people, catering, private chef work. And I'm like, okay. And they had us create vision boards, and my vision board was like, Columbia, Missouri, community, local farms. And they were like, are you kidding me? You're gonna go back to Missouri? You're in Austin, Texas right now. This is like the coolest place, Missouri, really. I'm like, trust me, that's where I need to be. You all talk about Austin, like how cool it was in the 80s, and that's kind of like we're in our like really cool phase. There's like 3 Starbucks only. Yeah. So now I'm like, don't tell anyone else about Columbia. So I came back and I created my first business. It was called Sorella Natural Foods. Sorella means sister, and I was trying this personal private chef route. And it was very lonely. But I made these flyers and hung them up around town. They had the pull tabs on the bottom. This was like before social media had a big pull and face in front of people. But it worked, you know. I had clients, but they were mostly like extremely wealthy people who were sick and needed a healthy diet, or doctors who were busy and needed a healthy diet, and I was emailing them menus, making their food and delivering it to them. So lonely. And I'm such a people person, yeah. And so I just kept thinking, like, how do I manifest cooking for the entire community? I want to cook for the whole community. And I was like, just doesn't seem like salads and smoothies is gonna get their attention. But just, this is a list of in-home classes that I taught. I know you can't see it, and that's okay, but I just wanted to illustrate like what I was doing as Sorella Natural Foods. This is a lot of like really healing, healthy diet classes, how to cook with whole grains and fermentation, things like that. It didn't really take off. So around this time, Brian Manis was buying a food truck. And I was like, I'm gonna buy a food truck. I'm gonna ask Brian how it works. And I still have this little notebook with all the questions that I went to ask Brian that day. And there's no answers in the book because he was like, I don't know. Help me figure it out. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll work on the food truck. And we quickly learned that Columbia wasn't ready for a food truck. This was like 2013, 2014. There's a lot of rules about where they could park, and people weren't used to it yet. So we started thinking outside the box. Where do we bring the food truck where there's lots of people? Music festivals. So we drove the food truck down to Arkansas, not too far away. But it's a scary thing to take a food truck that far away. This truck, it was built in an old potato chip truck. So it's lightweight, but full of very heavy equipment. And the heavy equipment's on like the left side of the truck. So we're driving down the highway and it's like up on its side. And we're like, oh God. And we get there and it was a disaster. It was fun, but the food was a disaster. We realized, we were looking around, like these other vendors, they've done this before, and this food truck is not a big enough space. It's a small space, and we're trying to cook for thousands of people. So we learned a lot by looking around and asking questions at that music festival, and what we saw was they had trailers full of equipment. They open the trailer and build an outdoor kitchen, like half the size of this room we're in. It's like you're in a restaurant, but you're in a field, and there's a pop-up tent over the top of you, and that way you can like recreate this kitchen space. We were like, and you have to do it fast. It has to be so efficient. It's like a McDonald's setup to sell food to thousands of people. Like, we don't have to recreate anything. We can't do it out of a food truck. We need to build this outdoor kitchen. So we traveled the country. We went, this is me and one of my favorite stars, He's from a band called Green Sky Bluegrass, cooked for lots of famous people. This was in the Blue Ridge Mountains, but San Francisco, Florida, New York, Michigan, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, we were all over the place, 20 festivals a year. And at first I was like, well, the cooking part is fun and the party part is fun, but like opening the trailer and building the kitchen and then cleaning it all up and putting it back into the trailer is scary and hard. But I decided, like, I'm gonna learn that part. And I mastered it and became the boss. And over the next few years, I hired the team that traveled with us and trained them all. And as soon as we got to whatever site we were at, I would open the trailer and train them how to build this kitchen and set up our own plumbing and electric and gas lines, and then make the food from scratch, which most vendors weren't doing. They were opening boxes of chicken strips and french fries and deep frying it, and we were making strawberry jam and fresh biscuits and sausage gravy on 90-degree days. And it was really fun. Like some glory days for sure. And also, it was extremely risky. We would travel across the country. We got to the point where we were building 3 kitchens at a festival, not just one. And we had golf carts and walkie-talkies, and we were moving food all over the festival. And then a tornado would come through, or ticket sales would be down, and there was all this really, really physically hard work and little sleep, and so much risk. But it was fun, so it was hard to walk away from. COVID put an end to this. But what also started happening in between the music festivals, I heard this term, maybe out of California, I don't know where the term came from, pop-up. And I was like, oh, interesting. I can make my own menu that's not biscuits and fried chicken and sell it in Columbia at night at a bar. And I'm like thinking about this concept, and I meet this local farmer, and he is one of the key players here in this story. This is his front porch. This is his garden sign. At this time, he's like 77 years old. He lives off of Garth, and his name's Tony. He moved in to the Ridgeway neighborhood over 50 years ago, and the property he bought was an old apple orchard. He removed all the stumps and built a farm, and the neighborhood grew up around him. So this is Tony, and he was half a block away from where I was living in the Ridgeway neighborhood. So in between festivals, I would walk down to Tony's house, and he would give me a tour of the farm and everything that was growing, and I would start buying it and making menus. I mean, he's such an important part of my story. This is my first flyer for my first pop-up. It's on my fridge. This is my fridge at home. But it's a handmade flyer, and I posted it all around town. It was a toasted ravioli pop-up at Cafe Berlin at the end of 2016. And that was a success. People were like, whoa, handmade toasted ravioli? And it looked beautiful. It had like flowers on the plate. So then I started making more menus, and it was all local ingredients. And it was not Italian, not toasted ravioli, but just like creative stuff. I was trying things. I came up with this name, Sidebar, because they were small plates and at bars. And it's like, oh, this'll work for now. This is Tony growing some seedlings. We spent so much time together. These are more like sidebar menus. I did pop-ups mostly at McGinty's, Clicks, and Cafe Berlin. And this is a picture of the small kitchen I was working out of. It is behind, it's in the same building as Cafe Berlin. They have 2 kitchens in that building, one for their restaurant and one in the back that biscuit company was working out of. Their truck was always parked there. And they were like, sure, Shelly, you can use this space to like make your little raviolis or whatever. Eventually, Tony started planning his crops with me based on what I would use the most of. And he got up to planting like 400 tomato plants and so much more. It was incredible. I mean, the land he'd been cultivating for 50 years. There's a lot of perennials out there and things that come back every year, and this was his experience, how he put his kids through college, and I got really into buying his tomatoes and processing them the way that my Sicilian grandparents processed tomatoes. So my experience at this time was really as a fresh food processor. Like I would go over there and come out with trash bags full of basil and a car full of produce, and then I would turn it into something, make a menu with it. Let's see. Yeah, tomato crazy. And that's Tony in the kitchen with me. He just wanted to help me as much as possible, so he would cut down the tomatoes and then I would cook them down, and we had all of like these different stages of ways that we would turn the tomatoes into sauce, and it started out like really like labor intensive, like milling them. But I started investing the money I was making into machines. So this is a little motor that processes tomatoes, and it really like changed the game. And that's one of the decisions that I made over the last several years is invest all the money into the company and buy machines that'll make it more efficient. Yeah, my mentors were Brian Manis and Walker Claridge from Broadway Brewery and Lee Lockhart from Main Squeeze. And when I worked for them, I was like, oh my God, these people were born to be entrepreneurs. Like Lee would say, each of these napkins cost me 3 cents, you know? And I was like, oh my God, I won't waste them. And just seeing like the ambition in Brian and the dedication, like no matter the weather, like we're doing it. I'm like, no, it's cold. And he's like, we're doing it. I'm like, okay. And Walker being a farmer and a restaurant owner, like I could tell he was working 14-hour days all the time. I remember thinking to myself, what will I be like when I'm 36? Will I be like these people? How do I become like them? I was like wondering, like, what would it take for me to transform into an entrepreneur like them? And around this time, there was also a lot of documentaries on Netflix about chefs. And I started watching those and always feeling like inadequate. I'm like, that person has so much drive. And they don't care about anything except for growing this business, all this dedication. Could I be like that? So a lot of consideration there. This was my first farmers market booth. This is inside Parkade Plaza. And eventually, like, I tried all these different pop-up menus, and then I thought, nothing drew the crowd like the toasted ravioli did. And as a food vendor at music festivals, like what you want is that line of people that never ends. I didn't really have a restaurant mentality. I had a food vendor mentality. And what does a food vendor do? They source ingredients, they produce food, they have to package it, which is considerable. You have to find the right packaging for your food and label it, which the health department tells you have to do. Okay, label it, promote it, license it, sell it. It's like a lot for a person to figure out. But I was like, these toasted ravioli are complex. Like I have to make the pasta dough, make the filling, turn the ball of pasta dough into sheets, put the filling in the sheets, turn it into ravioli. And then to turn it into toasted ravioli, I have to bread that and then fry it. So I was like, how about I just make ravioli? It's a little easier. So this was my first booth. I could almost carry all of this in like one go. There's a cooler of ravioli back there and a cash box and some information about the product. This is my Prius filled with produce from Tony's house. Shows how much I was processing all the time. So much basil. The sidebar pop-ups, they became more about pasta, less about other like tacos. Like I tried Mexican food for a while. It was so fresh. But then I started traveling, and my family's always been obsessed with Italian food, so that's really like my experience as a kid. I'd be like, should we go to get Chinese tonight? My dad's like, no, what would we order? So I've always grown up in this like Italian experience, but I started going to Chicago to look at like, well, how do these pasta shops like set up and operate? What tools do they have? I started going to Italy in 2018. The first pop-up was 2016. 2017, I got my first farmer's market booth. 2018, I flew to Italy by myself, and I had a rental car, and I drove around the country from north to south, and I learned the phrase, what is the specialty of your kitchen? And I'm eating alone, and sometimes they'd be like, Bella, this is too much food for one person, and I'd be like, let me talk to the chef. I want to try all this food, I promise. Put a bottle of wine on the table, give me time, I'll eat it all. But I was seeking not like, a ton of ideas, but I was like, if I could just go and find one or two really good ideas that I could bring back to Columbia and duplicate, that would be good for my business. And on the first trip, it was cannelloni, which was one of my favorite foods growing up. If you don't know what cannelloni is, it's kind of like an enchilada, but it's not a corn tortilla, it's fresh pasta stuffed in sauce. That's what I would eat after school, before dinner. I would take it out of the freezer and microwave it. And so then I go to Italy and I ate like fresh cannelloni made by grandmothers, and I was like, this is something Columbia would love. Time? 5 minutes. Okay, alright, 5 minutes. In 2019 I hired my first full-time employee. She's the general manager of Pasta Fata now. Her name's Moki Hana, that's a Hawaiian name. And she saw this like creative, chaotic person making all kinds of food, and she brought structure and order and spreadsheets and color-coded things. And then the pandemic happened, and she built a website, and so that was a like next level, take this up a notch, going from pop-up to farmer's market to a website, because not everybody in town's going to come to a pop-up or the farmer's market, but during the pandemic, they will sit at home and order lots of pasta from their phone, and I will deliver it. So that gave us so much more reach, and I became obsessed with the farmers market booth and how it looks, and the community watched it change and grow all the time. The booth over the years, and what I did every Friday night was rent a vehicle from U-Haul, and every Saturday morning I would get up at like 4 and load it, and I would think, this is crazy. Who does this? Where is this going to take you? But I learned how to do this from food vending with the biscuit company, loading trucks, unloading trucks, selling food. I was really good at it, loading these trucks all the time. And then I was like, what we need is freezers. We need lots of freezers to build this company so that we can make more ravioli and lasagna and cannelloni and have a huge inventory. So this is me roping my friends into buying all the freezers around town. I rented a basement that's underneath Delia's right now in Angan Woods, and I brought the freezers down the stairs. So I was also making the food at Cafe Berlin, taking it across the street to the freezers, bringing it downstairs, and then every Saturday for the farmer's market, bringing it up,
Oh my gosh.
and then back down after the market. It's a lot. I was like, wouldn't having a restaurant be easier? So then, 2020, I met my business coach. One of the best decisions I ever made in my life. But when they sent me this picture and told me who they paired me with, I was like, she's so fancy, she's not gonna understand me. I'm selling ravioli out the back of my Prius, my hands are dirty from gardening. I was extremely afraid. I was afraid of like success and what that might look like, and failure at the same time, all of the time. And I didn't know how to be a business owner. I just was like so passionate and hardworking, and she quelled all of my fears. And you really like get what you put into this kind of relationship. And she had like 80 clients or something. Some of them she only met with like once a month, and I was like, can we meet twice a week? And everything that she told me, I would do it. Done. Move forward. And we bought this pasta extruder at the end of 2020. It was a Kickstarter, our first Kickstarter that she talked me into. I was like, nobody's gonna participate. She's like, do it. And I did whatever she told me to do. A pasta extruder is like a Play-Doh factory for fresh dough, and you can make any shape, like little dollar signs or fettuccine. You just have to buy these bronze attachments. This little machine, the bronze attachments cost like $200, $300 a piece. We have a bigger machine now. They're like $500 or $600 a piece. Panzerotti I found on my next trip to Italy. I've done 3 of these trips where I land, I rent a car, and I spend 3 weeks driving around the country asking, what is the specialty of your kitchen? And then we started making my grandma's cookie recipes, which touched people on this emotional level that I hadn't experienced with savory food. People were like, the cookies, grown men. This is just a recipe in her handwriting. The back of Berlin, Tony with zucchini. We outgrew that little kitchen and started making pasta like in the parking lot. And eventually Cafe Berlin was like, we love you, we believe in you, you have to go, you have too much stuff. And we moved into Como Cooks, which at the time was at this big hospital on Business Loop that's been demolished. But it gave us a place to really spread out. And I took my crew on a road trip down to Florida to visit pasta shops. They had never been to an Italian grocery store before, and they'd been working so hard, so I was like, let's go. This was our storage where we just started getting more packaging and propane tanks. I started collecting equipment so that when we had our own home, we would have tools, our own tools. There's the freezers, and eventually John Ott called me and he said, we've never met, but I've heard about you. You're well respected in this community. I don't know what your next plans are, but I want to show you this building. And I met him there, And I was like, this is way too nice for us. I need something like really small. And thank you, but there was no electric or plumbing or gas or HVAC system. And then thinking about it for a couple of months, and talking to my business coach, she was like, you just need a plan. You need a business plan, and we need to go to the bank. And I was like, the bank? But really what the bank needed to see was the numbers going like this. And they were like, let's go, Shelley LaFata, we believe in you. So the next year was like me sprinting. I'm a very visual person. I see myself like running as fast as I can and collecting things and carrying things. I mean, we needed so much stuff, and an engineer and an architect and a contracting team. So it's good that you have me here now, because then I couldn't have presented because I was so confused. The build out, it really was like I went to New York City and looked at what pasta shops and Italian markets, how do they fit so much stuff into such a small space? And we bought so much used, filthy equipment. My team spent weeks deep cleaning it. It was really hard work. We asked for help from the community. That was one of my big lessons. Ask for help. People will help you. And we had a local person make a wooden sign. All my friends helped bring everything in. Like, I don't know how you imagine a restaurant opening and being built, but I bought a box truck with a lift gate on the back, and we drove around Missouri buying used equipment and picking it up, lifting it. These are my best friends. Here's Chris Canada here, he's sitting in the back, and Patty Jernigan, he's the general manager at Ozark Mountain Biscuit Company, but they've got a 600-pound oven on a pulley system, moving it into the restaurant. And my dog was there all the time because I didn't know what else to do. And my LaFata family coming on the first day we opened. It's a beautiful thing. And I teach pasta classes there now. We have fancy dinners. It's a very dynamic thing. I use the word dynamic a lot because I didn't want to be tied to a traditional like business model of a restaurant. I want more freedom, and so we have fun, and we do fast, casual counter service. A lot of people want candles and white tablecloths, and I'm like, no, let's maybe just save that for later, and let's just try all these different things. Yeah, so that's the last photo, the slide of me and Tony in his garden. This is all overgrown asparagus in the background, and strawberries right behind us. Yeah, so.
Thank you, and I know that we're running up on 9:30, but as long as you have a couple minutes, we're open to taking a couple questions from y'all. Something that I was just giggling about when you were talking, I realized you and I have actually danced together at Bonnaroo in 2015 or 16 to LCD Sound System after a terrible tornado, and the whole crew came out, and I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is how we initially met, and you might not remember that, but it was a great time. After a
I
stressful time.
remember
It's a
the
good time.
water being shut off that night, and we weren't able to do our dishes.
Yeah. Well, you had a good time before that. Now there was dance. Or that
Yeah,
had been
it was
afterwards.
fun.
I don't know. But yeah, we'll take any questions.
Where is Tony now? Is he still in the process?
Good question. I figured somebody would ask. In the summer of 2021, he had a heart attack in the garden harvesting tomatoes. And he's in a memory care facility in St. Louis. It's a really good facility. We were just on the phone yesterday for 20 minutes. He calls me almost every day, and if I don't pick up, he leaves long voicemails. So he's not able to farm anymore, but in 2022, the year we opened our restaurant, my team and I planted 300 tomato plants out there and harvested them all, turned them all into sauce.
had mentioned your mentors. Have you had the opportunity to mentor new up and coming?
Yeah, so one of the things that my business coach and I talked about, I was like, how are you doing this for me? Why do I deserve this? It was a free service from the Missouri Women's Business Center, and she said, I'm doing this because when I owned a business, the wine cellar, Sarah Sear and Craig Sear, she was like, people helped me. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was so grateful that I was part of this, like, people helping other people, this line. And now I tell people all the time, first of all, I say yes. And we're in a community where there's so many like curious people and journalists, and they always want to like hear the story, ask questions, talk about it. And I'm just like open and I'm yes. And especially if people want to get into food vending, I'm like, you better talk to somebody who's done it. Like, do not just buy a food truck.
One more?
So you talked about leveling up and the people and processes who have helped you at each one. What is the next level up for you? What will it take?
Great question. The next level that we're working on is bulk wholesale fresh pasta sales to St. Louis. So we have a big, beautiful Italian machine that extrudes fresh pasta in different shapes, and we use a flour that is milled in St. Louis. And I actually go there to buy it. I buy like 1,800 pounds at a time and drive it back here in my Prius. It's the best flour. Yeah, but by the end of the summer, we want to be delivering bulk pasta to St. Louis once a week. And this is like, I want to build that for the next 2-3 years. And then I want to get bigger equipment, invest in bigger equipment, and create a lasagna production facility in Columbia, because it's like, I don't think that the world needs more dry packaged pasta or tomato sauce in a jar, but our lasagnas are very unique and silky and light and fluffy, and I think we could distribute them and ship them.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
Thanks. I could talk forever.
We're so happy to have you. One more time for Shelly, y'all.
And Shelly, we can't forget, we wanted to provide you with a sweet little spicy gift to bring home. We'll pepper plant for you, planted in Tony's garden maybe, or wherever you see fit. And thank you again to everyone for coming. Your support means the world to us, and we want to keep being able to bring in great speakers like Shelly. If anyone has folks that you would love to see speaking, please also email CreativeMornings or send us a note on Instagram. We're always taking recommendations. And I hope that everyone can come next month. We have Renisha Duke coming from Soul Sessions, so that's going to be really, really fun, and she'll be covering Vibrant, so I think it's going to be a really great way to bring in the weekend. But thank you all for coming. Please follow us on social, tell your friends, bring more folks, but we hope you all have a great start to your weekend.